I first started, I wanted to, I was raised as a Catholic. I wanted to be a Roman Catholic priest. And my mother said, don't just go into the priesthood, you've been through the Catholic school system your whole life, you should go and get a liberal arts degree and then decide what you want to do. So I came to Lehigh and I took computer science. And so I just said, all right, but when I'm done, I'll then finish this and become a priest. So that was my plan. And then I met Emery Zimmers and had the class, and he basically encouraged me to stay for a master's and PhD. And then I thought, well, my life was heading in a different direction. It was very easy to go in this direction. So I would, rather than sort of be educating and working with people in the clerical business, I would do that as a teacher, right? And then I had the opportunity to start the business after I was halfway through my PhD. And then I thought, well, maybe I can even reach more people if I actually can run a company and do that, and maybe have a bigger, even more number of people with a bigger impact on economics. So it never really started as an entrepreneur. It was really first a cleric, and then an academic, and then finally an entrepreneur. So it was just being open to those opportunities. And when I look back after 30 years, I really do enjoy being an entrepreneur. It's really about creating something out of absolutely nothing. There's nothing there, and you figure it out. So that's very exciting to me. It's very creative, and it's starting with no resources at all, and then trying to figure out what to do, and then to have those resources, and we can find those resources and make it happen. And that's very different a job from a large company CEO who has all the resources, right, and has to produce a return and has to get growth and those kinds of things, and run huge companies. There's lots of specialty available. As a small company CEO, you have no resources to do what you want to do. It's all about creating those and then building that stability over time. So I thought I'd be clawing my way up to the top, and then now I end up sort of pushing everybody down beneath me. Right? So it's a different, and you tend to have many different jobs during the day, where I think as president of a large company, you have a sort of a vision, and you have people that are doing things, and you have some major initiatives, but you're pretty much doing the same thing. In the job that I have, the hat's really changed a lot. You're the chief cook and bottle washer. You have to know how to change the tires of cars, and you have to fix things and all kinds of stuff. So it's never, and I like that. I'm not sitting at my desk all the time. I'm moving around doing things and showing people things, and that I feel like a hands-on person. As my Lehigh experience has been applied research to solving problems, it's really the applied management that I like, not the theoretical. So risk comes with costs, right?
Yes.
You have to take a cost and risk. And it's much easier to take a risk when you're your age than when you're my age, right? Because now I have a house, and I have a wife, and I have children and college education. I can't risk those things now. So I was fortunate enough to be exposed to an educational process that gave me the foundation. So I was, through my 20s into my early 30s, I had the education. It was a top-notch education. And then I had the opportunities from some of the time I was like mid-20s onward to form a company. And I always felt if everything just fails, I could just go back to my parents, right? But I can't go back to my parents now, right? So it's really taking the risks at the time, and you can take the risks when you have enough education, enough background. If you take too much risk, you can just end it all, right? And if you don't take enough risks, then you sort of settle into a pattern that doesn't meet your objectives. And so it's getting that balance right is very important. And for me, it was, I thought, where were my risks? Getting a PhD, no problem. Starting a company, no problem. Getting married, big problem. Right? That was a big, big risk for me because I didn't want to get divorced, and I didn't want to. So it took me very easy time to get the PhD, very easy time to start the company. It took me a long time to get married. But other people just get married, right? And they're going to deal with that. To me, was very risky, from my point. So I think it's how you perceive risk, and then what you do to mitigate it. And I take more and more risks as I get older because I know how to do it. And one definition of courage is having done something before. So if you take a risk and it worked, and you take another risk and it worked, you take a risk that didn't work, you just don't make the mistake that's going to kill you or your company. And I tell that to my 18-year-old son. Don't take the risk that's going to kill you, right? And he doesn't know what the risks are yet and what he's exposed to. So I never took the risk to bet the farm. Everything had to come through. But I did actually learn how to do these risks. I took small risks, and now I have a diversified portfolio. So now I can take bigger risks, and because I've got other things going on, I can take a bigger risk in here because I'm not going to die if that one goes, right? So as I developed a portfolio of investments and had some experience with taking risks, I get better at placing the bets and understanding what the downfalls are, and I'm doing more of that, you know. But now I can afford to. So it's a matter of you can afford to do a lot of risk when you're young. You can afford to do a lot of risk when you have your investments paying off, and when you can't afford to take a lot of risk, you have to be very careful, you know. And a lot of times you can see it coming in hindsight, but everything's go, 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 and you think it's all going to go. And what I've learned is in our society, everything works until it stops working, right? That's a really good question because it's the only way you really do that is to try it, right? So the first thing, as I mentioned in the class, you have to understand is that people are messy, right? They're just not. It's not easy. So if you want to build teams and lead, you have to be interested in people. I grew up thinking people were very straightforward, and I ended up thinking people are not very straightforward. So you have a job that you want to do, and you have some talents that you have to get, and you have to get people that you'd never really quite know, right? And you need to get all that working. So where are the breakdowns? Let's say you haven't done the job before, so you think you know what the requirements are, but you find out when you start working that those weren't the requirements. So the more you understand the process or the technology or the business objective or the climate, the better you can to build the teams. But so teams all work well when they're within the context. And if you understand the context, you build that, right? The second is, let's say you have the job descriptions right that you want. Then you have to hire the right person or get the right person to do it. It's always easier to work with people that you know. All right, so the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, right? So if you know that this person does a lot, 80% and can stretch and grow, and you have a working relationship, that's the person you want. So a lot of times when a new executive comes in, he chops the heads off a bunch of the vice presidents. He brings his own vice president because he knows if he has to fix this in a company, he knows that these people can do it, right? So that's very important. Promoting people, working with people you know is important. Now, if you don't know the person, then they can interview really well. It's amazing how people can come across, right? They can talk about, oh, we did this and our team did that. You say, well, specifically, what did you do? Did you? And there's people that can figure out things, and there's other people that didn't figure out anything. They just did what was set up to do. So if your job is to run something that was set up to do, you're going to be fine. If your job is to figure it out and design it, you're not going to do very well. But yet, those people who interview can talk the talk. They're trained by people at Lehigh how to interview, how to make it look like you can do it, and put things on resumes that are hard, that on paper look really good. So you can do everything you can to understand, to test, to recruit, and at the end, you don't have a good match for what you want, for all the reasons. So you go through that process, and then you have to say, I have to hire slow and fire fast. If it's just not working, because it's not going to work if it's not working, right? You can give a little bit of time, but you have to do it. And then the third factor in the team is how do those people work together? So you can look at, hey, we've got these 3 resumes, all look great, but 2 people can't stand each other, right? And who knew? How would you know, right? You get them working together, you see. So getting a team working and introducing the third person and the fourth person is vital. And that's like a little dance, like a kabuki dance. You have to really get that right. And I always thought, hey, a person has their background, should be able to do it. But let's say that person is a person who is dismissal of people and puts them back acts like the smartest person in the room, puts people off. That person can come in and with a very good small group, working group, could completely grind it to a halt. Everybody's mad, they're not working, they're all upset. So the last part of it is sort of getting the context and the job description and the people who have that job description, and then those people working together takes a while, right? Now, if you've done that kind of thing and you're hired to the next company you keep doing, you get really good at that, then you can fix things and get it working really quickly. If you're learning and growing, if you grow up in an organization and it's all working, you can understand the process, you know the personalities, you've seen it, and you worked in it, you can take that and do it or run it, right? The tricky part is if you're starting a business and you don't know that process, and then you got to just start, and it is people mill to go through that process. It's like disheartening because you keep trying and you keep trying, and it's working in other companies and it should be doing it, but it's not working for you. You just have to keep at it. You can learn the skills,
Right.
but if you don't have the disposition to learn, or I'll tell you, I can't teach a person to program at 21. You either know how to program or you don't, right? And you have to come with that skill, right? But it's more important to me, like you listen. Like if you're going to be a consultant and you don't listen, how do I teach a 25-year-old how to listen?
Right.
I can't do that, right? But if someone has to learn this technology, we can teach the technology, right? So it's a matter of, it's more important that you have. I thought growing up that it's just a skill, it's on the piece of paper, great, you can do a C program, you're hired, right? And it's so much more than that, especially in small group dynamics. And even large companies are made up of small groups, you know. So you're joining a group, and the person who has the ability to do the job can range on an order of magnitude. You can be like really bad, or you can be really, really like 10 times better than anybody else. But ultimate success is to get with a team that can produce the result for the customer. And that I just can't teach somebody. I mean, that's who you are. It becomes a fit problem. So it depends on what you want to be, right? So you want to be a leader. I'm sure you want to be a leader, and you're taking the class, and you want to basically influence people and work in a company where you hopefully. Yeah. So though everybody's going to expect you to do what your degree is in. So if you're an accountant or you're an industrial engineer, people are going to expect you to be able to jump on a line and start, looking for bottlenecks and, and making process improvements because you've got the intellectual background, you've got the degrees, and so everybody's going to expect you to do that. So it's really the other things that you can do to give you opportunities that you're in competition with other people for the next level, right? So if you have a vice president who's looking to grow the organization and do certain things, he or she is looking at a pool of people, and you want to be able to stand out in that pool, right? So you just think wherever you are, there are people watching what you're doing. You may think, what am I doing? Okay. And so what I've told people is if you do it to the best of your ability, if you do a report that's the very best report you can do, not just throwing a report together. If you give a presentation that's the very best presentation you can do, and you try to make an impact and you try to make a difference, you are helping other people. Good word gets out that you actually are really smart and you help people. Or you get into a line whose metrics improve because you're getting everybody, you're seeing a bigger picture. And I can't tell you how important that is because you're trying to stand out to people who have the next generation problems. And just think of, no matter what you may think of Barack Obama as a president, he gave a tremendous speech at a very important time, and that got the entire Democratic Party as a junior senator who was nobody, grew up in Hawaii, right? So he was able to do a really, really impactful speech at a key time, and that set him on a different direction. So it's a matter of doing the very best you can, knowing that there's opportunities, and putting yourself in the best light you can to be considered as a leader. The other thing you can do is to really find people in companies that can give you advice. I mean, mentors, people in the company, have seen all kinds of stuff. They know how companies work. They know what works and what doesn't work in the company, and they can tell you that. So it may take you 10 years to find out something, right? Because you're just in it working. And this guy or woman can tell you in 1 year what you have to know to get past all that. So there are people that aren't publishing these processes, but grooming people inside the company and testing people and that kind of stuff. There's an HR list, there's people who are assigned, and you wouldn't even know, right? So what I would do is to go to the organization and start feeling some people out. Who knows how people make bigger contributions? You wouldn't say get ahead, but how do people make bigger contributions in this company? And that's the kind of person you want to talk to. So, how did you do it? How did you rise to this position? And how does one do it in this economy? Well, I can tell you, you have to get an A in this sort of thing in the next 3 years, whatever A means, right? And then you have to go internationally. If you're going to do Verizon, Air Products, or J&J, you have to do a stint in China or Europe or someplace, you know? So, okay, you wouldn't necessarily know that. But if you don't do that and cross it off your list, you don't have the breadth of experience in the company, right? You have to do a sales stint because the company is all about sales and marketing. You have to, as an engineer, say, well, why would I have to do that? Because if you want to be a leader, you have to know how different parts of the organization work. Well, how do I do that? Well, here's how you do it. Right? You talk to this guy, you talk to how you do it. You get an assignment, you get that assignment, and you keep working your way through till you have it on your resume. You're doing what you're doing now. You're writing your resume every year, right? You're updating your resume every year, and working with a mentor to see does that resume give me the foundation to do the next level stuff, right? And then if you're doing that, you would be getting the promotions, you'd be getting those things. And you say to yourself, why would somebody help me? Because someone has helped that person, right? Or they have to identify somebody and bring that person on. I'm in the country club at Saucon Valley. You have to, you know, the membership's down. They want you to recommend somebody to go, right? You have to pull people along, right? And if you're going to take another job, if you're running the business, you need to have people behind you who can take your position. You can't be the only one who can do this job. So you have to bring people along. And they have to bring people along, you know, in order for this whole thing to work. If the company's growing, then everybody's pushing up. And the people at the top are being pushed out or putting up to the board to create the openings for everybody. So I guess what I'm telling you, all of that working is not by accident. It's working because there's processes and systems in place and connections that people make. And the way you do that is you do things to make you stand out in a positive way by buying into the culture and doing the things that more people are successful than just yourself. And you get a person who understands how this whole thing works. They'll tell you the unofficial rules, right? And every social group or organization group has unofficial rules. The things you do and the things you don't do. And that's not in the employee handbook. You have to actually connect to get that.